It's Nature Wins podcast, a climate adaptation journey. I'm your host, Maureen Aylward. This is Cape Ann's climate story, a storied place. Gloucester, Rockport, Essex, and Manchester by the Sea. Coastal communities of people who know their way around a storm, but were vulnerable to climate threats and working on coastal resilience. It's Nature Wins podcast, and I'm your host, Maureen Aylward. In this episode, we're going to be talking about TownGreen's Neighborhood Resiliency Project, focusing on the importance of emergency management here on Cape Ann. I'm joined in the Streamography studios by our partners on this project, the American Red Cross and the City of Gloucester's Office of Emergency Management. So Collin Buckner is the City of Gloucester's Office of Emergency Management Assistant Director, and Collin has held emergency management and disaster response roles with the Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning Committee, the Town of Falmouth's Marine and Environmental Services, NOAA, the American Red Cross, the water and wastewater industry, and his role with local government. Kyle McWilliam-Lopez is here as the Executive Director of the American Red Cross Northeast Chapter. Kyle joined the American Red Cross in 2017, and his years with the organization have taken him from hurricane recovery operations in Florida to managing statewide recovery services and government relations in Massachusetts. In his current role, he oversees disaster response and emergency preparedness across 62 cities and towns here in Massachusetts. Collin and Kyle, welcome to Nature Wins podcast.
Glad to be here.
Thanks, Maureen. It's good to be here.
I'm excited about talking about the Neighborhood Resiliency Project with you. And before we get into the details of what the Neighborhood Resiliency Project is, I thought that we would go back sort of to the beginning and just chat about how we even started working together in the first place. So, we had been chatting in different realms, but, what do you remember from those early days? Because it's been about a year and a half. Has it been longer than that?
I think it's been almost 2 years.
Yeah, because it kind of started right when I started with Gloucester, which was about 2 years ago this point. And I know we had that overlapping. We knew each other from like my Red Cross days that overlapped.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really forget how we were connected with you, Maureen. I know we were looking for like other local groups to be involved with, but TownGreen came up, and then it just kind of spurred from there. We started meeting kind of semi-regularly, and it's kind of developed into this.
Yeah, and for me, there are two things that I remember. So one, full transparency. I know Maureen very well personally, and I remember we hadn't connected about local work, and we had this phone conversation. I don't know why I called you up, or maybe it was you that called me. And then we just started riffing about all the climate threats and our shared passion for doing something about it.
Yeah, so emergency management just kept, emergency preparedness just kept rising to the top. And we were like, we got to do something about this, and we have to work together. And the partnerships were born.
Yeah. The other thing too, I do remember, Maureen, I think you organized something in Manchester, and we did an initial community preparedness event.
Yes.
And I came out and gave a short presentation, and we had a small number of people who were there.
Yeah.
And I think so since then, we've come a long way.
I wonder if that's where we met, and I followed up with you.
Yes, I think that was the first time Kyle and I reconnected in person since my days with the Red Cross, and then that's where I think that's initially where we met. Yeah, it was like a after work workshop at the American Legion in Manchester.
Yeah.
All right, so we figured it out together. Now everybody else knows. So the Neighborhood Resiliency Project was percolating for me for a long time, because when I was in grad school, I was driving up to Antioch University, New England, and Keene, New Hampshire, and I was thinking about this neighborhood idea after I had listened to some kind of radio segment that was talking about this program in Detroit, where this individual community organizer was connecting on climate and bringing people together in neighborhoods. And I said, what a great idea. Someday
Hmm.
I will figure out how to do something similar. And it never left me. And I think that that's the power of an idea, a power of a thread that, you get thinking about and something special that someday you're going to work on. And then after I met the two of you and we started meeting together, and then here we go, where it's already going. I also thought that we might talk about those origins of some of the discussions that we've had about the importance of social connectedness. The importance of emergency preparedness being a way through to build greater social resilience and
Hmm.
also neighborhood resilience, climate resilience as a benefit. But this idea of social connection and social cohesion being at the very base of what we do, or the heart at what we do.
Hmm.
Kyle, you have a lot of really wonderful things to say about that.
Yeah, so I think to step back a little bit, at the American Red Cross, there's a really big initiative right now, and it's as an organization, we've always been focused on disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. Um, However, with the increased frequency and intensity of climate dis- caused disasters, uh, you know, um, there's sort of an evolution of our mission, and we're focused more and more on how we can come and partner with local communities, um, to build disaster resilience. And so we've been talking a long time about, hey, it's all about neighbors helping neighbors. I kind of understood this intuitively from my background in recovery and seeing how communities come together. And we have a saying in the disaster space that disasters start locally and they end locally, and all of that is so true. Um, what has been really thrilling for me is that over the course of the last 2 years, as the organization is changing, I've had the privilege, really, of being able to take some internal courses in how to build community resilience in the disaster space. And so it's been extremely eye-opening for me. And there's a ton of really great social science that informs our organization's new approach. And I'm really on this learning journey. And um, so, you know, partnering with TownGreen and with you, Maureen, and with Collin on all this work that we're doing with the resiliency program has just been, um, you know, really wonderful, because it's exactly what we want to be doing, um, uh, across the country. And as the local leader, leaning into this and really having these in-depth conversations about how we can develop a hyper local approach together to make a difference has been really good.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle.
Yeah.
Colin, what about you? What are some of your thoughts about the importance of, building social connections and through your work at the City of Gloucester?
I think, and one of the things that like drew me to the Red Cross and like working together with Town Green was that my we know there has to be like boots on the ground in terms of volunteers and neighborhood projects, and that's it seems super simple, but it's pretty difficult to come by and especially organize, because we have. I mean, from the federal, state, and local level, we have these plans, we have these strategies, and a lot of things are on paper. But in terms of like trying to execute what is on paper at like the strategic, operational, and getting it down to the tactical level, where volunteers are desperately needed, possibly infrequently, but definitely needed when these super public-facing incidents happen. Um, it's really important to bring volunteers together. And having managed volunteers before, it's a time consuming. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of management to manage people, keep people engaged, and wanting to do the work. Um, and that's a lot for any employee. It's a lot for anyone in any organization. So it's like best a task that's taken on as a group, and as different organizations. And I think that the multiple tasks that we can take on between our organizations, between the city, the Red Cross, and TownGreen, to be able to multitask volunteers to keep them engaged and to keep them in a really complete community engaged way, I think has been a really big cornerstone for our working relationship, and being able to kind of well round this social engagement, because um, as we've seen, we've kind of been a little more, even neighbors seemed a little bit more separated than usual these days, and
Yep.
volunteering and coming together in a super hyper local way, which is one of the beautiful things about Massachusetts is our hyper local focus. Um, we are able to have volunteers engage in their community again, connect with neighbors, because every neighbor, every person that we help that's connected, that's one less person. When something happens, it's one less person in a shelter, it's one less person that's in the hospital, and that in turn um, helps save a lot of resources for local governments, for first responders, for people that desperately need it. And if we can, if our neighbors can help each other, then that's the point of the program.
Yeah, thanks. Cape Ann is a pretty resilient area, and we fundamentally understand the neighbor helping neighbors. I
Hmm.
think all of us are predisposed to do that, and we've been through storms up here. I do like to say that the storms of our past are not the storms of our present or our future,
Hmm.
and so we must be prepared. I also like to say that emergency preparedness is a climate action, and it's directly related to climate change and the threats that we face here, from sea level rise to more extreme flooding, um, and extreme heat. We're having right outside the studios right now kind of an early heat wave in May.
Finally.
Uh, yeah, I mean, we did need a little spring, but do we need summer right away? People just jumping into summer. Um, but yeah, emergency preparedness, making sure that your home is prepared, your family's
Hmm.
prepared, you're prepared, and your neighbors are as well, just helps us on the other side of something
Hmm.
that could, um, significantly impact our area.
Yeah.
Um, so neighbors helping neighbors, this idea of building social connectedness,
Yeah.
that's what resilience looks like.
Yes. I like to say resilience is relational. Um, if I could, I would just like to comment a little bit on and actually commend the work that Colin's been doing and around the emergency management space,
Yeah.
with the formation of the Cape Ann Regional Emergency Planning Committee. Maybe you want to talk about that later.
We can
Um,
talk about that now.
okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of talk about you know this. Maureen, we've done some presentations together, and one of your presentations talks about filling the gap,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's important for people and communities to understand what we mean when we're talking about that.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, and understanding a little bit of the history of some major disasters and Red Cross experience working in disasters, is that there's this really important space that Collin and emergency management professionals occupy, this more of a traditional top-down approach to how we're ready and how we respond to disasters, right? And so you have this, and like Collin's leading the way locally, which is super exciting. And then on the other side of the same coin, if you will, like you have this really critical space where the science says that communities that have strong networks, strong cross-sector partnerships, and strong leadership are going to respond better and recover faster after a big disaster. And so I think that's what we're talking about, is like they're both sides of this coin are really
Hmm.
critical. Um, so that's why it makes so much sense what we're doing here. Like we're all around this table. Mm.
Yeah, the effort, the we'll call it a regional effort, has kind of been working in tandem since it's just a timing thing, really. That's like luckily this our working effort with social resilience and working at the neighborhood level has been working in tandem with some of our regional efforts among the other municipalities. So the Cape Ann Regional Emergency Planning Committee, as it's called right now, we work together in the greater Cape Ann region to address primarily the basis for the group is hazardous materials response, but we use this as a conduit for working in other projects like mass care, preparedness training. We work with multiple partners, both non-government, local governments, state government, and non-governmental agencies. But we are hoping that this continues to be so much more. So, and it's kind of like taking shape like right before our eyes. With the working relationship with the Neighborhood Resilience Project and these other towns. So we're growing, and there is an interest with other towns to take on this regional effort that is like what we call it emergency preparedness. That is this training, this mass care, shelters and volunteer projects, and even like has some hazard mitigation things that we have going down the line. We're hoping to working with the state and some contractors to roll out a countywide membership option for other municipalities to join in efforts. And this is kind of in lieu of, we don't have regional agencies like some other states do. We don't have county government here. So we're working to kind of thread this needle in how to fill this void that is left by county government, to fill this gap that our local first responders and local officials are kind of double-hatted in everything. They have to do a little bit of everything, and the state agencies are busy dealing with what state agencies need to deal with. So there needs to be kind of this meeting in the middle that we're working on, and it's just something that we're constantly adjusting to. And the Neighborhood Resilience Project is certainly a big part of that, as we obviously hope to implement it here in Gloucester, and also hope to have roll it out the program, if not inspire the same thing across these other towns and municipalities that we have. So we hope that we engage a lot of municipalities, and we come together, because we're stronger together. And it's harder to take on, like getting back to the climate issues at hand, these very large, sometimes overwhelming issues that just small towns trying to take on by themselves. Just it's sometimes not within, tale as old as time, it's not within our capacities to take care of these huge issues. And so it's a whole community thing between municipalities and non-government organizations and the private sector banding together to try to address some of these issues.
So I was thinking about, this information gap, and I'll always remember going to this, the Regional Emergency Planning Committee meeting that was in the Rockport Community Room. And we had, the Rockport Police and Fire, we had Gloucester Police and Fire, Essex, Manchester by the Sea, and I think it was Hamilton and Wenham who were in that room. And I gave a short presentation about what the Neighborhood Resiliency Project was all about. So here we have the public safety officials from Cape Ann and a couple adjacent towns. Ipswich, I think, was there as well. And I'm talking about building resilience in neighborhoods. So there was this gap between what the public safety officials can do and their communication efforts. But they recognized that there was this communication gap down to the level of residents. How do we efficiently and effectively speak to residents and talk to them about the importance of emergency management? And I always remember one of the fire chiefs said, "This is exactly what we need. Are you kidding me? This is great."
Yeah.
And I was so thrilled, because we were at the beginning of figuring it out. And, what was exactly what it was going to look like. And so when we talk about that information gap or that communication gap, it's because these public safety officials are doing their work, and they've got so much to do that they don't necessarily always have time to get it all the way down to the household level. What we're trying to do is, I know that this is a stretch goal, as they call it. I always like to say, TownGreen's mission right now is to make sure that every household on Cape Ann is prepared for an emergency. And that's kind of a great mission and vision to have, in a way, because we really, truly want that. And we'll keep doing it until we figure out if we've managed to hit every single household. What we're finding and developing the program, which I want to get to in our second half, is that we are seeing a great impact. And we're also seeing just enormous interest
Mm-hmm.
in the program because people understand it.
Mm-hmm.
People feel it. They get it
Yeah.
that they need to be prepared too. And so we're going to take a break right now. And when we get back, we're going to talk about all the details of the Neighborhood Resiliency Project. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Common Crow Natural Market, Cape Ann's one-stop shop for natural and organic food, scratch-made grab-and-go treats and meals, natural and organic wellness and beauty items, and fair trade gifts and housewares. Kind service and knowledgeable staff will help you make the best choices for you. Our passion feeds you. Welcome back to Nature Winds Podcast. I'm Maureen Aylward, your host. We want to thank our sponsor, Common Crow Natural Market. They're just great. Eastern Ave in Gloucester. And I'm back with Collin Buckner and Kyle McWilliam-Lopez in the Streamography Studios here in Gloucester. So we are diving into the details of what the Neighborhood Resiliency Project is. And I'll start out by saying, when we started the partnership and we figured out that it was essential that we work together, we kind of went on a listening tour. And we talked to a lot of folks because, mostly in nonprofit organizations, because I figured out that, and we figured out together that we could work with a network of the nonprofits that were already here and present on Cape Ann, of which there are many, these social services that they provide in order to reach the most vulnerable folks among us.
Mm-hmm.
And with some funding that TownGreen received from the Essex County Community Foundation and the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, we were able to bring some more materials and emergency bags. So we figured out from these listening sessions that we would work with nonprofits, and we started calling this the Neighborhood Resiliency Network. Right now we have about 18 to 20 in our network out of an identified 30, so we're really making good headway on that. But when we started that listening session, we had one idea,
Mm-hmm.
the road show.
Mm-hmm.
And we were figuring that whole thing out and we were planning it until we went and we stepped inside some of these offices, and then people told us exactly what they needed from us around emergency management
Mm-hmm.
and emergency preparedness. So we ended up coming up with the drop-in sessions as one of the first things to do. We started at the open door, and a drop-in session meant that TownGreen would be there with emergency bags. We would help people fill out a Red Cross emergency plan or a family disaster plan. And then we would also go through a MEMA checklist. MEMA is the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, and they have this checklist of what to do to prepare. And wow, did that ever work?
Yeah.
And that has been going strong at the open door. And now TownGreen is setting up more drop-in sessions to reach, again, those most vulnerable folks. So the open door food pantry, seniors, we're focusing on folks in lower income neighborhoods, as well as others. And so, yeah, let's just talk about those drop-in sessions and also get into some of the small group classroom work that we've been doing.
Well, I would just say it's been awesome to see this take off and have it so well received by community members. And great that TownGreen was able to get some funding, from my perspective, to get the Red Cross Go Kit bags and use some of the preparedness materials that we have to really, more proactively go out and reach the most vulnerable parts of the community. I know that we have a lot more work on that front to do, but I think we're on to a good start. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's laying the foundation for my profession and what emergency management should be, or like what the stronger structural build of emergency management should be. What I mean by that is that you referenced earlier, Kyle, that emergency management's top down, but perhaps a more resilient structure is bottom up. Is that and it's without a doubt, it requires a lot of legwork, but being able to talk to people in individual homes, individual houses, um, strengthening communities, strengthening your region, strengthening the state, and then upwards and onwards to the federal and national level. And it's it and perhaps it's a different way to build an emergency management program, by having a better direct line of communication with local organizations, homes, and these drop-in sessions, being able to meet people where they are, where your local government is able to be able to meet you out. That's probably the more efficient way to meet people in their homes, and of course it takes time, of course it takes effort, rather than perhaps a digital approach or a top-down approach, as some would say. But it's what spreads your message. It's what builds the social cohesion we've talked about, and it allows for you to build up and onward more until to our emergency planning commission area and so forth.
Yeah, we found that, partnering and connecting with the social service network here has been, a tremendous help. We were at the open door, and I'll always remember sitting down with this young woman who lives in Gloucester. Most folks that we've talked to so far live in Gloucester, and she was telling me about she has a 2-year-old, and I said, well, we're going to go through this emergency plan right now, and we're going to fill it out together. And she said, oh, that's wonderful. Okay, I know I should be doing this, but having these few minutes to really go through it with you is going to help me. So as we went through talking about her home and what her go bag would look like, I also said, your little girl should have a go bag, and just take an old backpack and put some things in it, like, a plushie or a stuffed animal or book or something of comfort, maybe a game. And we talked about her pet too, like what would happen to her pet. People don't leave their homes if they have to evacuate without their pets. And so we had this wonderful conversation about all these scenarios. And when she left, she was like, you're giving me a bag too? And I said, yeah, we're giving you a bag and some extra things. And she said, thank you so much. I'm going to go back to my family and make sure that they have what they need, and that I'm going to spread the word in the neighborhood. And I was like, that's exactly what we had hoped for an impact to be. Not only was it an immediate recognition of the importance of preparedness, but that it would spread. And we know that not every person is going to be like this young woman, but I was really pleased to see that recognition and also the actions that she was taking.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I think it's reflective of what we call scout and scale. You said way back when, Maureen, when you saw a program that you wanted to implement something like this. And of course, not every state, not every community, not every county, not every town is going to be the same. But I think through our tour of talking to partners and finding out what they need, being able to kind of figure out what our community characteristics are. So being able to, it's going to take work to scale to each community, each neighborhood, maybe even within towns. But it's wholeheartedly needed, and I think that effort is definitely perceived when we roll it out. And it's we're not going to be able to copy and paste per community, but we're definitely working. There's a framework here that works, that can be filled in by each community. And I think we're going to see that kind of community engagement really spark here soon, as our changing climate kind of has these effects. Like, it's hot outside, this very active winter that we had. And of course that's going to have effects that we can't really predict or perceive or see right now into the future. But having this community engagement will help our neighbors and make our town stronger, even if it is just one person at a time at the open door.
It is a long-term plan and a commitment for TownGreen to be working in this space, because let's face it, climate change is here. It's not going away. It is going to have an impact here. We're a coastal region. We must be ready for it. And our local governments are working on this. They really, truly are. And we've got our public safety officials who are working on this.
Mm.
And TownGreen and the American Red Cross and the municipalities and our residents are all going to be working on this.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say too, like, oh yeah, Cape Ann is going to be the most
Yeah.
prepared region in
Yeah.
Massachusetts. I mean,
Yeah.
let's have some pride. Um, and that also makes it a little fun, as we go on. But just going back to something that you said, Collin, in our listening sessions, we learned that we had to customize. We had to pivot away from these things that we had developed as an idea to, oh, right, I think that the one-on-ones are going to be better. Yes, so check. Totally was right. We're working on that. We're doing that and spreading it out as far as we can. And then we learned that maybe some small group sessions
Yeah.
would be good. So we do classroom work. We've been with Action and also Wellspring, doing some small classroom sessions where we do exactly what we do in a one-on-one, only in a classroom, and we also deliver emergency go bags to those folks. And we do have this idea that we would have a larger event eventually, but instead we're focusing on the neighborhoods and going straight in.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to pivot to that right now to talk about the neighborhood liaison
Yeah.
idea as well as these neighborhood sessions, I'm calling it, because it gives TownGreen, the Red Cross and City of Gloucester, the ability to go into a neighborhood, and we are an area of neighborhoods, whether that's a street or a block or a gathering space. It doesn't necessarily have to be
Mm-hmm.
what we define as a neighborhood. It could be a community space, but a gathering place where we could talk about what matters to you in your neighborhood. What are you worried about? What are some of the issues that you've seen? Do you have flooding? Have you found other issues during an extreme rainstorm? Or do you find that you are experiencing real extreme heat? So, gathering that information too, and so working on this resiliency from the neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
approach. And Kyle, we've talked a lot about the neighborhood liaison. I'd just like to throw it over to you
Yeah,
to
I think,
discuss that.
yeah, so far we've talked a lot about the sort of the service delivery aspect of, hey, we're helping individuals and families with the emergency preparedness. And I think the next level up in terms of like where do we go from there to really develop true resilience is how can we, when we're going out into a neighborhood, truly build a network that could be leveraged when there's an actual disaster, right? So this is the mitigation work that we're working on right now during blue skies, as we might say. It's like, okay, we have to be ready. You just said that, right? This unexpected nature of what could happen. But we can do it right now when there's nothing happening, and we can do it in the spirit of, I think that it's kind of fun. Like we're doing something that we're fighting this tide of, increased social isolation and hyper individualization we all know is happening. And we're going out and we're saying, hey, let's build community. And so getting to this role that we've co-designed together, we're talking about actual volunteer position, where if you have a neighborhood, we could have volunteers. For example, maybe it's that person that was super energized when you met with her at the open door, and she was so grateful. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go home and tell my neighbors about this, my family, my neighbors. That's the exact type of person that could be in our network, and we can build this out across, starting in maybe the most vulnerable areas and where we know elderly populations are, low income people who we know are, disproportionately impacted by disasters. Like we need to focus on the most vulnerable, but we also, this truly is a whole community approach. So we want to focus on all of Cape Ann or Greater Cape Ann eventually, but we're doing it in a really intentional, planful way. And I think that that's the aspiration, is like to really build out this network. And I have to share, I'm really excited. The Red Cross is partnering with this expert in this space out in California. And next week, I get to go out and actually observe in the city of Cloverdale in California. They've actually done this in this community where the whole communities come together and built out these neighborhood level networks. And they're actually going to activate through an exercise how the neighborhoods and along in coordination with emergency management would behave in an actual disaster. And so that's next week. I'm super excited to like sort of observe that and bring those learnings back here, and we'll continue to work together to see what we can do.
Yeah, that's great. Great learning. We'll definitely integrate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it to organize into what you said, blue sky organize like ahead of time. It's taking what we've all seen, especially like most recently, let's say the flooding in Appalachia is what we see in locally is that these neighborhood folks, neighborhood groups, or organically organize when things like this happen. And what this is really just kind of utilizing um, that local responsibility, that neighborhood mentality, and people wanting to do something for the community and their neighbors. It's kind of organizing that so they can do more of it, so we can kind of harness that to make ourselves more prepared and safer. It's something that happens organically. It's you know be a little more organized about it so we can implement it.
Yep.
Better.
Yeah, so we are actively looking for neighborhood liaisons to get in touch, to have a program, a neighborhood resiliency program in their backyard or as part of a potluck or part of a block party. We will bring this information to you. We're not able to give out emergency bags to everyone, but we need lots more funding for that, and I'm sure that it's going to come our way. And we've got some things up our sleeves at the moment, but that's going to be wonderful when it happens. The other thing that I don't want to forget is that through our listening sessions and talking to folks, we learned that, and we knew this as well, was the language access was vital. In order to have this program, I had something scheduled, and then I had to stop because we needed to put together the language access. So we've been working with Rosetta Languages, they're a group out of Malden, and also another team of interpreters to provide Spanish and Portuguese at our programs.
That's awesome.
And that's especially with the social service agencies. And again, it's made all the difference. We can't do this program without it. So having that, I can't even believe the number of languages that are here.
Yeah.
We've touched people who not only speak Spanish and Portuguese, but also Haitian Creole and Mandarin, Kannada, which is an Indian language, and Ukrainian and Italian and Sicilian, and the list goes on. Oh, Swahili, and another several others. These are our neighbors.
Yeah.
And we want them to be more engaged civically, and being able to have them do the program and go home and share that as well has been wonderful. Arabic, I forgot Arabic.
Oh, good. You remembered.
Yeah. So Kyle, what are your thoughts on the language access piece and how it could provide more impact?
Well, it's just huge no matter what. I mean, at the Red Cross, most frequently what we see, because we respond to a lot of home fires, and we've got fantastic volunteers, and but also sometimes we struggle with the language piece. We don't have volunteers that speak Spanish, or many of them. And so in places across the North Shore where we're responding to fires all the time, so just about every year our volunteer teams respond to more than 100 fires, and maybe not that many fires here in Gloucester, but we respond to a lot of fires in places like Lynn, Lawrence, Salem, Lowell, just a lot of old housing stock, and um, it's a real threat in those communities. And those communities also have high Latino populations. And so this is something that we're highly aware of and focused on, because it just, again, makes a huge difference if we're responding to a fire and trying to help a client after they've lost everything and we can't communicate with them. This is a huge barrier to services that we have to help them with their recovery. And the same is true of larger scale disasters, of course, as well. At shelters, we need to develop um, the local volunteer capacity to be able to have that translation support when people come to the shelter and they need help. And we open cases to support those families and individuals that are impacted. And gosh, it's so important that you've got that bilingual support in place.
Yeah, my hope is that we have this bilingual support across the board, when it's needed, and building that team with TownGreen, it could be available to others, as needed. I feel like that will be one of the extra services that we might be able to bring to the table. But I thought we'd also talk about the difference between sheltering in place and an evacuation, because
Mm.
when we're doing the program, we do address both and preparing for both, because in our area on Cape Ann, it's more likely that we would have a shelter in place
Mhm.
order. But as we found out with the blizzard, there was a lot of power outages on Cape Ann, and
Mhm.
people lost power for quite a long time. Some 48 hours, others, maybe 8 to 12 hours. But that's a serious issue,
Mm.
especially in the middle of a winter blizzard. So I just thought, Collin, could you address the differences between and what's needed?
Yeah, so shelter in place is used in a variety of scenarios. It can be used in um, your rail yards back in my hometown of Cincinnati, if there's like a uncontrolled chemical release, or if there's a fire at a place where they're spreading, and that fire is spreading hazardous chemicals, or of course in a blizzard, a shelter-in-place order will be issued to close your windows, close your doors, get your pets inside, get your kids inside. Towels under the door frame, pretty much seal up your house so that you're not breathing the air outside for whatever reason, or you shelter in place to stay off the roads. So if you do not need to go somewhere that is medically urgent, or you don't need to get somewhere because it's life threatening where you are, then stay at home, because being on the roads is hazardous and would create more hazards for first responders, and you yourself then become a victim of whatever situation is going on outside. A mass care, a shelter scenario situation is if something is like, if displaced many people from their homes. That could be flooding, it could be a storm, it could be long-term power outages, like we're saying, but
Mhm.
it's safe enough to shelter. And those calls are made in different situations, whether you open up preemptively or if you open up in a reactionary way. But the mass care shelters are usually for overnight stays. There's cots, there's blankets, there's food, there's volunteers like the ones we've been talking about during this podcast,
Mhm.
and where they're providing social services. There's other services that are rendered by like public health, state social services, local nonprofit social services, kind of a more wide-ranging um, shelter setup. And it is we're we're blessed and cursed here in Massachusetts, where we don't have a lot of terrible situations like hurricanes or storms or wildfires happen to us where we need to use those situations a lot. But then we're right, knock on wood.
Hmm.
Um, um, but because they don't happen, we're not as well practiced as we could be at them. Um,
Mhm.
so this is through training and exercise with first responders and nonprofit organizations. That's how we practice these mass care situations, because they do require a huge lift to open up, and you should only go to a shelter if you need those services. Their mass care shelters are lifeboats, not hotels, as we like to say.
Mhm.
Of course, people can be sheltered in hotels as well, but you're in cots, you're in a gym, and of course these situations happen, and we'll do everything we can to provide the services we can. But that is really the difference, is the shelter in place and the mass care. Is the mass care is a last resort, and you'll be taken care of. The shelter in place is you're in the comfort of your own home and you're not displaced yet.
Mhm.
And there's preparedness for both of those things. And shelter in place, you need to have water, you need to have canned foods, canned goods, a generator if possible. There's a lot of things on that MEMA list that would help you as well for shelter in place. And then, and so locally, we get these notices through our alert systems here in Cape Ann that they're opening up a warming shelter in a storm or a severe cold, and that they're opening up, where the shelters are. I know in Gloucester, it's the O'Malley Middle School. In Rockport, it could be other places. But locally, we do see those things.
And quick plug there is that O'Malley is definitely one of our shelter options here in Gloucester. But while that's definitely one of our primary options, we're exploring with the Red Cross, exploring those other options of other shelter locations, because depending on the scenario, one might not be suitable for a shelter location, and the other might be. So we're definitely diversifying our options here in Gloucester with the Red Cross to be able to provide those services when needed.
Going to do some surveys here.
Absolutely, lots of surveys.
Yeah, but again, to folks listening, we're working on this.
Yep.
There are folks working on this, and it's important to sign up for your local alert system. And that might be like a reverse 911. I think in Gloucester it's Gloucester Alerts, and Rockport it's Code Red. I don't know what it is in Manchester and Essex.
I'm not sure.
They have like a Code Red similar. But everyone should be signing up for that.
We have a Red Cross emergency app I have to plug.
Yeah, Red Cross emergency app.
Yeah, that's great.
Download that onto your phone. Yep, that will give you like local information.
Local notifications when there's storms in the area. Tons of preparedness information is in there as well. So it's a pretty robust app.
Yeah, and who knew that there would ever be tornadoes in Massachusetts? I'm sorry. That's kind of a strange thing to be thinking of as well. But the Neighborhood Resiliency Project has been so much fun to work on. It has such a great impact, and I'm pleased to be working on this with both of you. And there's a lot of work to be done, as we said, but we got to do it little by little, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Step by step.
We'll
get there.
Yeah, step by step, we'll get there.
Yeah. How do you eat an elephant?
We don't have to try and boil the ocean, but we do have a plan to get there.
Well, the ocean is boiling. So. Yikes! The boiling point is close. Anyway, so thank you both for being on Nature Winds podcast. I really appreciate it, and it's again, it's wonderful to partner with you and to create this impact on Cape Ann. And hopefully future cities and towns around Greater Cape Ann area. So thank you very much for listening and tuning in. You can find out more information about our guests, Collin Buckner and Kyle McWilliam-Lopez, on our YouTube channel, TownGreen's YouTube channel, where you can see the video and also the audio. We have a Nature Winds podcast Spotify page, and also if you're interested in learning more about the Neighborhood Resiliency Project, you can find more at town-green.org. You can connect with me, Maureen Aylward. I'm the Executive Director of TownGreen, as well as the host at maureen@town-green.org. We're grateful to Common Crow for its sponsorship, and from the Streamography Studios in Gloucester, thanks so much for listening and tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Maureen. Thanks, Collin.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Nature Winds podcast, a climate adaptation journey. Follow Nature Winds on TownGreen social platforms, #TownGreenInc. Listen to Nature Winds on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Visit towngreen2025.org to subscribe to our newsletter and learn more about TownGreen.